Hi, this is Vicky of singlemotherahoy.com, and you're listening to my podcast. I've decided for the time being that these podcasts are going to be mostly about my sugar-free challenge, or whatever you'd like to call it, purely because I think a lot of people seem to be interested in what I'm doing. A lot of people are doing similar things that aren't quite the same. And a lot of people are just kind of completely dumbfounded. People have said, oh, you're brave and all this, and why would you do that? And also, how are you coping? How can you cope with that? So I thought I'd kind of just stick it all in my podcast and kind of talk about everything every week. So this week has been interesting. I've steered away from the sweet things mostly. I've had a couple of little lapses. I'm finding the hardest thing is saying no to Samara. I don't like to be the cause of her crying. No parent likes to be the cause of their child crying. And I mentioned before that she was drinking a lot of kind of fruit shoot, juicy kids drinks that are aimed at kids, basically. And I'd managed to get her down to not drinking very much of it and mostly drinking water by giving her kind of funky coloured cups and things that she hadn't really used before. She's kind of got away from the juice and things. The problem we have is, whenever we go out and go into a shop, she expects that we will go to the juice fridge and buy some juice. And I can't, I think maybe short term I'm going to try and not go into shops while I'm with her. That's going to be really tricky. But I can't just keep on giving her sugary things, because it's not really on if I'm, knowing what I know and what I feel to be correct about all of these things. It's not then fair to just keep feeding it to her. So I do need to put a stop to it, but I find it so hard. If we walk into a shop and we don't go to the drinks fridge and she wants to, and there's, we'll have a big kind of meltdown, and it's not that it's embarrassing so much as I just feel so guilty and so horrible, everyone knows how it feels when that happens. The other thing that happened the other day, we finished nursery and I had to go into the Marks and Spencer food hall to get some tea because we didn't have anything at home. And of course we went in there and she immediately wanted to go to the freezers and buy some ice lollies because it was sunny. And I thought, I did the same thing basically. I couldn't say no to her. We went to the freezer. I looked at them. I found the ones that looked the least offensive sugar-wise, and we bought those. But they're still really sugary, and they're in my freezer. And after she's gone to bed at night, I do end up eating one every now and then. And I hate that. I hate that. Basically, if it's not in the house, I can't eat it. And once she's gone to bed, I'm stuck in the house. I'm kind of fine in terms of having nothing there to tempt me. If there's nothing there to tempt me, I can't go out and get it. I can't eat it until the morning when, usually the craving's gone. I'm hoping that's going to be a short-term thing. I think it's linked to habit rather than anything else. Certainly, when I was eating a lot of chocolate and things, I would always have, not always, but most evenings, I would have something in the house to eat, as my pudding when Samara had gone to bed, or as soon as she was in bed, if we'd already had tea, I'd come back downstairs and have whatever it was, a chocolate bar or a pudding or, whatever. And I think I need to get out of that habit, and the only way really that you can get out of that habit is not having that kind of, doing that thing that has the association. So in the book I was reading, The Sweet Poison Quit Plan, the guy says, if you always if you always have a biscuit with your tea, then put a box of nuts by the kettle and have nuts instead. Or if you always get a muffin when you go to the coffee shop, go to a different coffee shop or find one that says, buttered toast or something instead. That's great, but I can't not put my child to bed. So I'm finding that once I get downstairs, I need to do something else to distract myself. So I'm trying to do some exercise or maybe sort of the washing or something, rather than sit back down on the couch and start doing my work and have some chocolate to nibble on, which is what I've been doing until recently. So that's all sort of, plodding along. I have cut out a huge amount of sugar from my diet, and I did lose 2 pounds this week. Without really doing much exercise and without changing my diet at all other than not having sugar. In terms of things like still eating crisps and not eating very many vegetables, I'm still eating mashed potato and all the things that you wouldn't probably eat if you were on a diet. So it's, in that respect, it does seem to be working, which is great. I went to the Salisbury Big Business event. It's on until Thursday this week. And it started yesterday, and I went along, and there was free coffee and everything, and I thought, if I just stay away from the table, I won't even know there are biscuits there. So I don't know if there were biscuits on the table, because I just stayed away from the coffee table just in case there were, because I knew they'd had a breakfast meeting thing. So there was a big marquee though outside. First of all, I won a bottle of champagne in one of the events, which was brilliant because it's nice to win things and everything, but I don't drink anyway, and champagne is really sugary, so I was a bit like, thanks, bit of temptation kind of thing, but I'm just, it's going to stay in the kitchen until I figure out what to do. Well, there's a big marquee outside, and it had a big job fair in there, and I thought, well, I'll go and have a look and see what's in there during the break. And I had a look around, and there must have been maybe about 30 tables. Every single table, a couple of people sitting or standing at the table. They've got competitions, they've got leaflets about what they do, they've got demonstrations, what have you. Every single table has at least one bowl of sweets. Some tables have 2 or 3 bowls of sweets. They're all giving people sweets as they come to the table. And normally that wouldn't even, aside from, let's get as many sweets as we can, I wouldn't have noticed that. It wouldn't have hit my radar, but it was the first thing I noticed. And I kind of turned to my friend and went, look at this, every table's got sweets on. And she went, oh God, yeah, that must be really hard for you. Do you want to go? And I said, well, no, they don't appeal to me. And in all honesty, I was looking there were little bags of Haribos, there were Mao-Am chewy bars and boiled sweets and all sorts. And all I could see was kind of too sweet, sugary, full of chemicals and E-numbers, and that's going to give you a headache if you eat it. And it didn't appeal to me. I'm getting the same thing with chocolate in that you look at it. I don't know if you've ever had this, where I get it with McDonald's actually. You really fancy a McDonald's breakfast and you go and get one and you get halfway through it and you just feel a bit sick and it doesn't taste like it looked on the picture kind of thing. And with sweets, I kind of get that same thing in that they look exciting and everything, but I just know they wouldn't taste as fantastic as you would, as the bright colours and names and everything would suggest. So I'm not particularly bothered. I'm finding with chocolate as well, I don't really fancy chocolate. This is the problem, is that I want something nice. I want something nice to eat. But when it comes down to what do I actually want, there's nothing. Long before I gave up sugar, I think probably because I was thinking Slimmer Slim Pod, I would kind of walk into a supermarket or a shop and think, I really want something nice to eat. But I couldn't put my finger on what it was I wanted to eat. And I would go and stand in the chocolate aisle and kind of hover about and think, do I want one of those? Do I want that? And I go to the pudding aisle and look at the puddings and think, I don't really fancy one of those. And no, I had that one yesterday and I didn't really like it. And I don't really fancy that either. And I'd leave empty-handed because there was just nothing I fancied. So now, although I know I really want something nice to eat, I don't think it's that I want something sweet. And certainly everything sweet that I have eaten in the last few weeks has kind of tasted increasingly dull and kind of boring and not at all what I wanted. And I've eaten it more kind of out of habit or because I've opened it and I don't want to waste it, which is a terrible thing, really. But it kind of proves the point that I don't think I've got the addiction anymore. I think it's habit that's kind of dragging me off of my course, as it were. I've been kind of... If you're preparing your own foods, it's quite easy to do this. It's I'm not some master chef. Anyone who's been to my house will see the food that I serve up is not fantastic at all. Samara is, at home, quite picky. At nursery, she eats whatever they put in front of her, 2-3 helpings. At home, she doesn't really eat an awful lot. So the only thing she used to really like sausages, but the sausages that we used to buy had sugar added, because they were apple and something sausages. And they obviously can't just put bits of apple in the sausage, they have to put sugar in as well. So I've had to stop buying those, and the ones I bought to replace them, she didn't like, and I didn't much like them either. I don't think they were very good sausages. So I don't want to be wasting money trying to find a different brand of sausages that she likes. I don't really have money to burn, so we've not really had sausages very much since that first time we tried. The other thing that she really likes to eat is breaded chicken goujons. And I know I'm reading a book at the moment by a lady who lives in America who had a real problem with this because all of the breading on the product had sugar in, but I've actually found the ones that we were buying, which were either Tesco or Marks and Spencer, touch wood, they didn't have sugar in the ones that I checked, so those have been okay. The vegetables, obviously, if you just buy vegetables, they don't have sugar. I do buy mashed potato sometimes frozen in little bags, just because there's only 2 of us, and it's just it's so much easier and cost effective in terms of how much electric it takes to boil a potato and all that business, to just put a few of these little bits of potato in the microwave for a couple of minutes. And I was kind of thinking, God, I bet they've got sugar added to them, but they haven't. They're just potato, so it's fine. So if you're at home and you're cooking your food, we never used to have cereal anywhere. I've not had a box of cereal in the house for years, so that wasn't a problem. what we've had for breakfast recently. I made porridge this morning with berries. Not a huge amount of berries, just, some berries. Sometimes I sweeten it with a little bit of stewed apple, which I don't think I'm really supposed to do, but it's difficult to get food into Samara in the morning, and she kind of needs all the help she can get in terms of coaxing. So I'm kind of lowering the amount of stewed apple I put in each time. It's a bit naughty, but it's better than sweetening it with anything else, to be honest. Other things, I have quite often poached eggs, bacon, avocado. I made some granola, which sounds really knit your own yogurt, but actually just involves chopping up nuts and kind of swishing them about in some coconut oil and some cacao powder, I think it is, or something, so it's a bit chocolatey. So it's really, really easy. Just put it in the oven for 20 minutes. It's easy. So I've had that. Samara won't eat avocado. I don't know any toddlers that will. She won't eat eggs. So I don't think she's ever tried bacon. So she tends to have peanut butter on toast most of the time, except where I changed our brand of peanut butter because the one we had sugar in it, she's not too keen. So we're struggling to find things for her that she wants to have for breakfast. Sometimes she wants what she calls dippy and cucumber, which is cucumber and a pot of hummus, and she will sit and eat half a pot of hummus with a spoon if you let her. And I kind of think, well, it's not a traditional breakfast food, but at least you're getting some food in you, so I crack on with that. She always asks for chocolate brioche, and so far I've managed to put her off of that one. But not like she didn't used to have chocolate brioche for breakfast every day, but we used to have it in the house for, weekends or her birthday or, a special treat. We ran out of chocolate brioche, and when she asks for one, I say, I'm sorry, there are none in the house, and she goes, oh, we'll go to the shops and buy one, and I go, yeah, after breakfast, and I try and get her to eat something else for breakfast, and then we go to the shops, and if we don't go down the aisle with the chocolate brioche in, she doesn't remember that we need to buy it, so that's what I've been doing until now. I'm kind of thinking, if I can avoid going to shops with her for a couple of weeks, maybe, hopefully, she will forget all of these associations about we're going into that shop. When we come into this shop, we go into the fridge and get a drink, or we go over there and buy chocolate brioche. So I'm going to try and not go into the shops with her, which is going to be really tricky because usually on the weekend that's when we kind of go and get some food shopping. So I'm going to have to try and find time during the week. But hopefully if I do that for a couple of weeks, she'll lose those associations. I'm reading this book at the moment by this lady who did, it's called Our Sugar-Free Year. And she did a year with no sugar with her kids. She did hers slightly differently because she used dried fruits to sweeten some foods and to make kind of cereal bar things, but also she kind of used bananas and dates to sweeten a lot of cakes and things that she made. So I think they were probably eating a lot more kind of bananas and dates and dried fruit than I am, because I'm not eating dried fruit because it's 70% sugar. But that they did it that way. But she said her kids, I think at the time, were like 5 and 10, and she said actually everybody was asking how the kids were doing with it, whether the kids had a problem. But once she'd sat down and explained to them what they were doing, the kids seemed to find it easier than the adults. I think probably because when you're 5 or 6, you don't have 30 years worth of experience of having pudding after you've eaten your dinner, or 30 years worth of experience of buying ice cream in the summer and things like that. I think things like that are tricky if your child has friends that are all kind of doing it and are all that business. And I think the lady, when she did this challenge, kind of said to her kids, okay, when we're as a family, we don't eat sugar, but if you're given it at school, it's your choice whether you eat it. And got around it that way. And she found that a lot of the time they were choosing not to eat the sweet things because they just didn't like the taste of it anymore, I think. And that's kind of what I want to get to with Samara. It's tricky because actually most of her meals that she has, I think most of them now she has at nursery. So, and I can't march into nursery and say she can't have any added sugar, because that would mean that she basically couldn't eat any of the food that they have. Not that they have, tons of added sugar, or they give them sugar for every meal or whatever, but I don't want her to be kind of singled out as, okay, well, we're all having cake for pudding, but Samara's not allowed pudding. So I'm happy for her to have what she has at nursery, because they do feed them nutritional balanced meals, they feed them good food, and if they want to have cake for pudding, let them have cake for pudding. And I don't want her to be sat there in the corner with the only one that's not allowed to have cake, because I don't think that's fair on her. She's not old enough to understand, and we'll deal with it as she gets older, I guess, when she's